In a late-night shift, Jonas Harper scrolled through a private local group and saw a video of his wife embracing another man, the fire in his heart igniting, ready to burn everything down. The fire station was quiet, the hum of fluorescent lights and the occasional crackle of the radio, the only sounds as Jonas sat in the break room. His phone screen glowed, casting shadows on his tired face, still smudged with soot from a call hours earlier. He was scrolling through a private Wisconsin locals group on social media, a habit to unwind after hauling people from burning buildings. Then the video appeared, posted by an anonymous member, time-stamped from a bar downtown. Meredith, his wife, leaned into a man's arms, her laugh unmistakable, her hand lingering too long on his chest. The man, Quentin, a wealthy client from her bank, smirked with a familiarity that twisted Jonas's gut. His fellow firefighters lounging nearby glanced over, one letting out a low chuckle before catching Jonas's expression and falling silent. The betrayal hit like a backdraft, sudden and scorching. Jonas's hands shook as he replayed the video, the group's comments piling up, some mocking, others pitying. 8 years ago, he had pulled Meredith from a blazing apartment, her eyes locking onto his as he carried her to safety, a moment that sparked their love. Now, that love was ashes. Sadie, their 6-year-old daughter, was the only tether keeping his rage from erupting. He pictured her sleeping at home, her crayon drawings of him as a superhero taped to the fridge. The thought of her waking to a broken family clawed at his chest. Bryce, his best friend and fellow firefighter, had warned him weeks ago after spotting Meredith and Quentin at the same bar, their closeness too intimate for colleagues. Jonas had brushed it off, trusting Meredith's late nights were just work. But the video, undeniable and raw, forced him to act. He slipped into the station's locker room, away from prying eyes, and called a private investigator he'd hired after Bryce's tip. The PI texted photos within minutes. Meredith and Quentin at a hotel, her smile mirroring the one she once gave Jonas. 9 months of lies while he risked his life in flames, missing Sadie's bedtime stories. Rage battled grief, but Jonas chose precision over chaos. He logged into their joint bank account from his phone, transferring 75% of their $50,000 savings to a private account he'd set up, his fingers moving with cold efficiency. Meredith wouldn't notice until it was too late. Next, he crafted an email from a burner account, posing as a concerned bank employee. The message sent to the bank's HR included the PI's photos and alleged misconduct between Meredith and Quentin. It was a calculated strike, designed to unravel her career, but Quentin deserved his own reckoning. Jonas texted Bryce, who dabbled in hacking during college. By dawn, Bryce had slipped into Quentin's social media, and Jonas posted a vague status. Secret sync, deals truth burns brighter. The post, shared in the same private group, sparked whispers among Quentin's elite circle. The final blow was riskier, a spark to ignite their guilt. Jonas used a burner phone to call the hotel from the video's timestamp, posing as a firefighter. He told the clerk to inform Meredith Harper her husband was critically injured in a blaze. His voice was steady, but his pulse thundered, imagining Meredith's panic, Quentin scrambling to explain. A smaller crisis flared as a rookie firefighter overheard the call and clapped Jonas's shoulder, joking about his prank. Jonas forced a smile, his insides churning, knowing the call was no joke but a grenade lobbed into Meredith's world. He moved to the garage where his Dodge Ram waited, packed with a tent, survival gear, and a duffel of essentials. The truck was his escape plan since the PI's photos confirmed the affair. He checked the fuel, tires, every detail as meticulous as a fire call. But this was no rescue. Before leaving, he wrote a letter, his hand trembling on the notepad. Meredith, you chose Quentin. I choose Sadie. Don't find me. He nearly tore it up, a minor climax as Sadie's face flashed before him, her giggle when he tossed her in the air. Instead, he drove home at dawn, slipping into Sadie's room. She slept, clutching a stuffed bunny, her snores a knife to his heart. He kissed her forehead, tucked a letter under Meredith's pillow, and grabbed a drawing from her bedside, him in a firefighter's helmet, saving her from crayon flames. Back in the Ram, Jonas drove into the Wisconsin night, the cold biting his skin. Walter, his father, had agreed to take Sadie, his gruff voice promising to shield her from Meredith's chaos. Bryce's warning echoed, "Think of Sadie, man. Don't lose yourself." But Jonas was already burning, the video's images fueling a fire that could consume him or forge something new. The road south stretched toward Texas, maybe Mexico, anywhere but the ashes of his marriage. Meredith's world was crumbling, Quentin's too. But the cost loomed. Sadie's innocence, her trust in her hero hung in the balance. Jonas gripped the wheel, the drawing in his pocket, a fragile tether to his daughter, as the fire he'd set threatened to burn beyond his control. This story is just beginning, raw and gripping. Listeners are invited to share where they're tuning in from. Those hooked should hit subscribe to catch what's next. Jonas Harper's Dodge Ram tore through the Wisconsin night, Sadie's crayon drawing tucked in his pocket, but the fire of Meredith's betrayal burned brighter than the road ahead. The highway stretched south, a dark thread weaving through silent fields and forgotten towns, carrying Jonas away from the wreckage he'd left behind. His phone stayed off, a shield against Meredith's desperate calls. After his staged hotel ruse, the private group's video exposing her affair with Quentin had set her world ablaze. His calculated strikes, emptying their savings, emailing her bank, hacking Quentin's social media, promised more flames. Yet the cost gnawed at him. Sadie, his 6-year-old daughter, slept under his parents' roof, her superhero dad now a fugitive from her world. Jonas gripped the wheel, the cold air seeping through the Ram's window, his heart heavy with the image of her tiny hand clutching her bunny as he kissed her goodbye. He drove through dawn, eyes burning but mind relentless. The Ram loaded with a tent, survival gear, and a single duffel was his lifeline. A plan forged when the private investigators' photos confirmed Meredith's 9-month deception. Missouri's flat lands gave way to Oklahoma's red dust, and by Texas, the air grew warm. The landscape vast, Jonas stuck to back roads, avoiding highways where memories might catch him. He stopped at gas stations, grabbing coffee that tasted like ash, and slept in the truck when motels felt too exposed. Sadie's drawing, creased from his touch, was his only anchor, its crayon hero mocking the man he'd become. In Laredo, he crossed into Mexico, the border a blur of stamps and glances. Chihuahua was a vague destination, a place to vanish. Days blurred into a haze of dust and solitude, but a text from Walter, his father, pierced the fog. "Sadie's fine, but she's asking for you. Call when you can." Jonas's throat tightened, his fingers hovering over the burner phone. He wanted her voice, her giggle, but feared it would unravel him. He replied with a promise to call soon, then shoved the phone away. The drawings weighed heavier than the miles. Hidalgo, a dusty Mexican town, forced him to stop when the Ram's exhaust rattled loose. Jonas pulled into a mechanic's shop, a tin-roofed shack run by Rosa, a sharp-eyed woman with a warm laugh. She offered coffee while he worked, her chatter about local life a brief respite. Rosa mentioned a photo exhibit in town, insisting he check it out. Jonas shrugged, more to appease her than out of interest, but her words lingered as he tightened the last bolt. That evening, he wandered to the exhibit, a small gallery under string lights. Black and white photos lined the walls, raw images of weathered faces and broken places. One stopped him, a child reaching for a kite, the sky bruised with storms, echoing Sadie's small hands reaching for him. Jonas lingered, unaware of Lucia Delgado until she spoke. The photographer, her voice soft but steady, wore a leather jacket, her dark eyes carrying a familiar pain. She introduced herself, and Jonas, hesitant, gave his name. Their talk eased into something real amidst the crowd. the gallery emptying but their conversation deepening. Lucia's photos were her way of holding on to what she'd lost, she said. Her ex, having stolen her savings, severed her tie to her sister. Jonas shared Sadie's light, her drawings, but stopped short of Meredith's betrayal, the video still too raw. Lucia's quiet nod invited trust, and when she mentioned heading to Guatemala for new shots, Jonas offered to join her, the words spilling out unexpectedly. She studied him, her gaze piercing, then agreed. A spark of connection flickering between them. Their bond wasn't love, not yet, but a shared need to outrun shadows. As they left the gallery, a group of drunken men lurched in, one snatching Lucia's camera bag. Jonas stepped forward, fists ready, but Lucia acted first, spraying pepper spray with a swift flick. The men staggered, cursing, and Jonas pulled her through a back door, their breaths ragged as they sprinted to the ramp. In the chaos, a film roll slipped from her bag, landing in the dirt. Lucia froze, kneeling to grab it, her hands shaking. She admitted it held her sister's last photos, her voice breaking. Jonas retrieved it gently, their eyes meeting, a moment of raw vulnerability. The incident was a spark, brief but searing, igniting something in Jonas beyond the ashes of his revenge. But as they reached a motel, Bryce's text lit up his burner phone. Meredith's out of a job. Quentin's deals are dead. Sadie's asking, why Mommy's crying? The words were a cold splash, dousing the warmth of Lucia's presence. Jonas stared at the screen, guilt surging like smoke. His fire had spread, scorching Sadie's world. Lucia, sensing his shift, urged him to let the past burn out, her voice a challenge. Jonas nodded, but sleep eluded him, Sadie's drawing beside him, Lucia's camera bag on the floor. The road to Guatemala loomed, a path of escape and reckoning. Jonas felt the fire he'd set in Wisconsin following its heat, threatening to consume the hero Sadie still believed in. Lucia's light was a faint guide, but the weight of his choices grew heavier. Jonas Harper's Dodge Ram rumbled through Guatemala's jungles. Lucia Delgado's camera capturing the wild, but Sadie's distant tears and Meredith's unraveling life cast a shadow darker than any storm. The Mexican border faded behind Jonas and Lucia, their escape from Chihuahua's drunken thugs, forging a fragile bond. The video in the private Wisconsin group exposing Meredith's affair with Quentin had sparked Jonas's fiery revenge, emptying their savings, sabotaging her career, ruining Quentin's deals. But Bryce's text about Sadie's confusion had doused his satisfaction with guilt. Lucia's urging to let the past burn out lingered, a challenge Jonas couldn't yet meet. Sadie's drawing, creased in his pocket, was a constant reminder of the daughter he'd left behind. Her superhero dad, now a man running from the flames he'd set. Guatemala's roads were a maze of mud and vines, the air heavy with rain and secrets. Jonas drove with the precision of a firefighter, navigating a blaze while Lucia plotted their route, her maps worn from use. They camped under dripping canopies, the jungle's chorus filling the silence between them. Jonas showed Lucia how to spark a fire with flint, her quick mastery drawing a rare smile from him. She spoke of her childhood in Colombia, her sister's infectious laugh, and the betrayal that severed their tie. Jonas listened, his own story locked tight, the weight of Meredith's deceit and Sadie's absence too raw to share. He mentioned Sadie's love for drawing, her tiny hand sketching him as a hero, and Lucia's eyes softened, sensing the pain beneath his words. A week into their journey, a storm unleashed its fury, the sky fracturing with lightning, rain turning the road to a river. Jonas spotted a family trapped by a swollen stream, their car tilting in the current, a mother clutching two children. His training kicked in. He parked the Ram, grabbed a rope, and waded into the flood. The water icy and relentless. Lucia shouted from the bank, her voice lost in the roar. But Jonas pressed on, securing the rope to the car and guiding the family to safety. The mother's trembling embrace, the children's wide-eyed gratitude mirrored Sadie's trust, piercing Jonas's heart. Soaked and shivering, he returned to Lucia, who handed him a blanket, her face a mix of relief and frustration. "You were brave," she said, "but reckless, risking yourself when others needed you." That night, under a sodden tarp, Jonas checked his burner phone. The storm's rumble a grim backdrop. An email from Diane, his lawyer, awaited, stark and unyielding. Meredith hadn't signed the divorce papers, citing emotional distress, and Diane urged Jonas to reconsider his hardline stance. The words were a jolt, but Bryce's text struck harder. "Meredith tried to overdose last week. She's in therapy, but Sadie's falling apart, asking why Mommy's sad." Jonas's hands shook, the phone nearly slipping. His revenge, the email, the hack, the fake call, had worked too well, torching Meredith's career and Quentin's reputation. But Sadie was caught in the blaze. He stared at Lucia's sleeping form, her camera bag beside her, and felt the fire he'd ignited turning inward, charring his soul. He called Walter, his father, the line faint against the rain. Walter's voice was steady, reporting Sadie was safe with him and Nora, but her questions about her dad grew more insistent. Her voice small and lost, Jonas's chest tightened as he promised to call her soon. Hanging up, he sat in the dark, the storm's rhythm matching his guilt. Lucia woke, her presence a quiet anchor. She sat close, her shoulder brushing his, and pressed him to share the truth. Poured out the video in the group, Meredith's 9-month affair, his calculated strikes to ruin her. He admitted the shame, the fear Sadie would see him as a villain, not a hero. Lucia listened, her silence profound. Then she spoke of her own regret, abandoning her sister to chase a dream her ex destroyed. She urged him to save what mattered, Sadie, himself, not burn what didn't. In Costa Rica, the road smoothed, but Jonas's thoughts churned. They stopped in a coastal village, the ocean a restless mirror. Lucia photographed fishermen, her lens capturing their weathered resolve, while Jonas fixed a local's boat engine, the work steadying his hands. A smaller crisis erupted when a child darted into a market stall. Knocking over a crate of fish, Jonas caught the boy, pulling him from a falling shelf. His heart raced as the mother thanked him profusely. The moment echoed the storm rescue, his instinct to save clashing with his failure to shield Sadie. Lucia snapped a photo, later showing him, his face taut, the boy safe. She called him a hero, her voice firm, but Jonas shook his head. The weight of Sadie's pain heavier than any praise. Bryce's next text arrived as they prepared to leave. "Meredith's in a facility. Sadie's with your folks. You gotta face this, man." The words were a knife, cutting through the fragile hope Lucia offered. Jonas's revenge had scorched everything, but Sadie's suffering was the true cost. As they drove toward Panama, the jungle's embrace tightening. Jonas clutched Sadie's drawing, its crayon lines blurring with his tears. Lucia's light flickered ahead, but the fire he'd set in Wisconsin burned on, threatening to consume the man Sadie still called her hero. Jonas Harper's Dodge Ram wound through Peru's rugged highlands, Lucia Delgado's laughter a fleeting warmth. But the shadow of Sadie's pain and Meredith's collapse loomed larger than the mountains. The jungles of Central America had tested Jonas and Lucia, their bond forged in Guatemala's storms and Costa Rica's fleeting calm. The private group video exposing Meredith's affair with Quentin had ignited Jonas's revenge, emptying their savings, sabotaging her career, torching Quentin's reputation. But the cost had grown unbearable. Bryce's text about Meredith's overdose and Sadie's confusion, coupled with Diane's email urging a softer stance on divorce, had turned Jonas's fire inward, burning his resolve. Lucia's call to save what mattered, Sadie himself echoed, but the weight of his daughter's drawing, creased in his pocket, anchored him to his failures. Cusco pulsed with life, its ancient streets alive with a festival of color and sound. Jonas and Lucia mingled with the crowd, her camera capturing dancers in swirling skirts. His mind briefly lifted by the beat of drums. They shared a meal of grilled alpaca and sweet chicha. Lucia's stories of Colombian markets easing the knot in Jonas's chest. She spoke of her dream to exhibit her photos globally, to find her sister through the stories her lens told, her voice vibrant yet tinged with loss. Jonas felt a pull toward her, a desire to confess his growing feelings. But the specter of Sadie's tears and Meredith's despair held him back, his silence a wall he couldn't yet breach. A call from Walter, his father, shattered the moment. Walter's voice, rough with worry, reported that Nora, Jonas's mother, had suffered a heart attack and was in the hospital. He needed to come home, Walter said, for Sadie's sake as much as Nora's. Jonas's breath caught, the festival's colors fading to gray. He booked a flight from Lima to Wisconsin within hours, his hands trembling as he packed. Lucia stood close, her eyes searching his, offering to join him. Jonas declined, insisting she stay, his promise to return strained by the fear he might not. Her nod was firm, but a flicker of doubt crossed her face, a silent plea for him to keep his word. The flight was a haze of engine hum and regret. Jonas landed in Milwaukee, the Wisconsin chill cutting through his jacket as he drove to the hospital. Nora lay in a quiet room, monitors beeping, her face pale but steady. Walter sat beside her, his gruff exterior softened by exhaustion. Sadie rushed to Jonas, her small arms clinging to his waist, her voice muffled as she said she missed him, that Grandma was sick and Mommy was sad. Jonas knelt, holding her tightly, the scent of her hair a painful reminder of the family he'd fractured. Her tears soaked his shirt, each one a rebuke of the fire he'd set with his revenge. Meredith appeared unannounced, her figure frail, eyes sunken from sleepless nights. She held a worn therapy journal, her hands unsteady as she asked to speak. Jonas's instinct was to turn away, but Sadie's grip on his hand rooted him. He followed Meredith to a corner of the waiting room, the hospital's sterile hum a stark backdrop. She spoke haltingly, admitting the affair with Quentin, 9 months of lies born from loneliness during Jonas's night shifts. The video in the private group, the email to her bank, the hacked posts, had destroyed her career. Her overdose, a desperate low she now fought to overcome. Her voice broke as she revealed a deeper wound, a second pregnancy kept secret, lost to a miscarriage she blamed on stress, fearing Jonas didn't want another child. The confession was a hammer, splintering Jonas's anger with guilt. He saw his own failures, nights he chose the station over home, moments he missed with Sadie. Yet Meredith's betrayal, the lies that shattered their family, held him back from absolution. He told her she made her choice, and he made his. Sadie comes first, his words were ice, but inside remorse churned, knowing his revenge had fueled her collapse. Smaller crisis erupted as Sadie slipped into the room unnoticed, her small voice trembling as she said, "Mommy didn't love Daddy anymore." Jonas scooped her up, his heart breaking as he carried her back to Nora's bedside, whispering assurances he barely believed. Meredith followed, her sobs echoing, her journal falling to the floor, pages spraying open. Nora stirred, her weak hand finding Jonas's. She spoke softly to Meredith, urging her to forgive herself, a moment that cut through Jonas's resolve. Her words were a mirror reflecting his need to release the fire within, not for Meredith, but for Sadie and himself. Jonas stayed until Nora stabilized, spending days with Sadie, coloring and reading, her giggles fragile but warm. Meredith visited, her presence a quiet plea, but Jonas kept his distance, his anger fading to a dull ache. Bryce dropped by, his humor subdued, reporting Meredith's therapy progress and Quentin's departure from town. The revenge had worked, but Sadie's quiet moments clinging to Jonas revealed its true toll. As Nora recovered, Jonas booked a flight to Bogota, determined to find Lucia. He left Sadie with Walter and Nora, promising a swift return. The hospital's stark lights receded, but Sadie's tears, Meredith's journal, and Nora's wisdom lingered, heavy as smoke. His revenge had burned brightly, but its ashes coated everything he loved, demanding he face the man he'd become before he could rebuild. Jonas Harper boarded a flight to Bogota, Sadie's tear-streaked face, and Meredith's shattered confession fading behind, but Lucia Delgado's faint light pulling him toward an uncertain future. The Wisconsin hospital, with Nora's recovery and Sadie's clinging hugs, had left Jonas raw. The confrontation with Meredith, a mirror to his own failures, her miscarriage revelation, and Sadie's overheard pain, had doused the fire of his revenge. Nora's quiet wisdom, urging him to let go for his daughter's sake. The private group video that sparked his fury, exposing Meredith's affair with Quentin, had burned out, leaving ashes of guilt and a resolve to rebuild. Jonas carried Sadie's latest drawing, a stick figure trio with a new, unnamed figure, a fragile hope for a family beyond the wreckage. In Bogota, life buzzed, its streets a tangle of vendors and honking taxis, the air thick with coffee and dust. Jonas navigated the city, his pulse quickening as he sought Lucia's photo exhibit, his promise to return now a lifeline. He'd left her in Peru weeks ago, her doubtful nod haunting him. The gallery, a repurposed warehouse, glowed with soft lights, its walls lined with Lucia's black and white photos, faces carved by hardship, landscapes raw with truth. Jonas scanned the crowd, his breath catching when he saw her. Lucia stood by a photo of a lone tree against a stormy sky, her leather jacket familiar, her eyes sharper, guarded. She spotted him, her face flickering with surprise, then warmth, but a cautious edge remained. Their reunion was a careful dance, words measured against unspoken fears. Lucia guided him through her exhibit, her voice steady as she described each photo's story, a way to hold her lost sister's memory. Jonas sensed her reserve, the distance his absence had carved. He apologized for leaving, explaining Nora's crisis and Sadie's need, his voice low with regret. Lucia nodded, her gaze softening as she admitted her own fear, wondering if he'd vanish like her ex, who stole her dreams. Her candor was a bridge, and Jonas crossed it, confessing his feelings, his need for her strength, but also his unbreakable tie to Sadie. He spoke of building a life together, his words raw, a vow shaped by the ashes of his past. The gallery hummed with visitors, but a smaller crisis flared as Jonas helped Lucia adjust the display. His unsteady grip sent a framed photo crashing, the glass splintering. The image was of a young girl, Lucia's sister, her last tether to a broken bond. Lucia's breath hitched, her voice sharp as she knelt among the shards, admitting the photo was her farewell, a step toward healing now fractured. Jonas joined her, gathering the pieces, his hand steady as he promised to repair the frame. Their fingers brushed, and Lucia's anger melted into a quiet truth. She wanted him to stay, but feared he'd run again. Jonas vowed he was done fleeing, his commitment to her and Sadie unwavering, a spark of hope igniting in the wreckage. They left the gallery, weaving through Bogota's vibrant streets to a corner cafe over steaming coffee. Lucia revealed a new challenge. A Los Angeles gallery had offered her a solo exhibit, a chance to launch her career globally. The opportunity thrilled her, but Colombia was her anchor, its soil tied to her roots. Jonas listened, his heart pounding, the choice of crossroads that could bind or break them. Returning to America meant facing the embers of his past, Meredith's shadow, Sadie's fractured world, but leaving Lucia was unthinkable. He spoke slowly, his voice firm, proposing they stay in Colombia, build a life together with Sadie. He envisioned a workshop, fire safety training for locals paired with a gallery for Lucia's art, a place where Sadie could grow. His plan was bold, a testament to his resolve to stop running. Lucia studied him, her eyes probing for doubt, then agreed, her condition clear. Sadie must always come first. Jonas nodded, her trust awaited. He welcomed a chance to be the father and partner he'd failed to be before. They lingered at the cafe, sketching plans on napkins, their hands grazing, a silent promise weaving through their words. Jonas felt hope, fragile but real, tempered by fear of Sadie's adjustment to a new country, a new woman in her life. Meredith's journal left behind in Wisconsin flickered in his mind, a reminder of the pain he caused, but Lucia's presence offered a path forward. Mateo, Lucia's artist friend, joined them, his easy grin cutting the tension. He had guided Jonas to the gallery, his blunt humor a foil to Lucia's intensity. Mateo teased Jonas about surviving Bogota's chaos, but his respect was clear, acknowledging the man who returned for Lucia. He spoke of her talent, urging her to consider Los Angeles, but supported her choice to stay. If Jonas is true, his words were a quiet challenge, one Jonas accepted, determined to prove his worth. As night cloaked the city, Jonas walked Lucia to her apartment, Bogota's lights a canvas of possibility. Sadie's drawing, with its new figure, was a symbol of the family he dared to build. The road ahead was uncertain, but Jonas was running towards something now, not away, guided by Lucia's light and Sadie's love. Jonas Harper stood in a Bogota workshop, Sadie's hand in his, Lucia Delgado's photos glowing on the walls. The embers of his revenge cooled, but the scars of Meredith's betrayal etched deep. Months had passed since Jonas vowed to stay in Colombia, his reunion with Lucia in Bogota a turning point after the hospital's raw truths. The video in the private Wisconsin group exposing Meredith's affair had fueled his fiery revenge, emptying their savings, torching her career, ruining Quentin. But Sadie's tears and Meredith's collapse had doused the flames, leaving Jonas to rebuild from ashes. Lucia's condition that Sadie come first had anchored his choice, and now their workshop stood as proof, a fire safety training center fused with a gallery for Lucia's art. Sadie, 7 years old, danced through it, her crayons sketching Bogota's vibrant chaos, calling Lucia Co or Lucy with a shy grin that eased Jonas's heart. Though it carried the weight of a fractured past, the transition was no simple feat. Jonas had returned to Wisconsin to bring Sadie, her small suitcase packed with drawings and a stuffed bunny. Her goodbyes to Walter and Nora tear, streaked but brave. Nora, healed from her heart attack, had pressed a worn family photo into Jonas's hand, her eyes urging him to forge a new home. Walter, gruff as ever, had clapped his shoulder, muttering about keeping Sadie safe. Columbia's bustle overwhelmed Sadie at first, her quiet nights clinging to Jonas, a reminder of the family he couldn't mend. Yet her laughter grew, sparked by street vendors and Lucia's patient games, her resilience a beacon through Jonas's lingering guilt. Jonas finalized the divorce through Diane, his lawyer, a quiet act that severed the last thread to Meredith. He sent her a letter, not forgiveness, but closure, wishing her peace, acknowledging the pain they'd both sown. The words were hard-won, a step toward dousing the fire within. Meredith's reply arrived weeks later, a brief note via Diane. She worked at a community center, aiding struggling families, her gratitude for Sadie's updates tempered by regrets she'd carry forever. Jonas read it alone, the letter stirring pity but no desire to reconnect. Meredith's betrayal had cost her career, her pride, and years of Sadie's trust, a burden she'd bear despite her redemption. He taught locals fire safety, his steady voice guiding them through drills, a way to save lives without the chaos of flames. Lucia's gallery drew visitors, her photos weaving tales of endurance that mirrored their own. Mateo, her artist friend, joined as a partner, his murals of Bogota spirit brightening the walls, some co-created with Sadie's eager hands. Mateo spoke of Lucia's growth, her light brighter with Jonas and Sadie, but cautioned him to honor his vows. The warning landed softly, a reminder Jonas embraced, his commitment to his new family unwavering. A smaller crisis unfolded one morning as Sadie unveiled a new drawing at the workshop. It showed Jonas, Lucia, and herself vibrant and smiling, but a faint figure lingered in the corner, labeled Mommy in wobbly letters. Sadie's eyes were cautious as she explained she missed Meredith, her voice small but honest. Jonas's heart clenched, the image a stark reminder of the family he couldn't fully restore. He hugged Sadie, promising she could hold her mother in her heart. Without losing him or Lucia, Lucia knelt beside them, suggesting they frame the drawing for the gallery, her voice gentle but firm. The moment was a quiet tempest, forcing Jonas to face the enduring wounds of his choices. Sadie's love for Meredith, a scar they all shared. Bryce's sporadic texts from Wisconsin brought updates. Meredith was stable, her community work a step toward healing, but Sadie's absence left a void among her school friends, a ripple of the family's fracture. Jonas felt the weight of his revenge, its cost carved in Sadie's uprooted life. Yet Bogota offered solace, Sadie's giggles as she painted with local kids, Lucia's steady hand in his, and the community's embrace were stones in a new foundation. Jonas taught a teenager to aim a fire hose, the boy's pride echoing Sadie's, a small triumph over the past. One evening, Jonas and Lucia sat on the workshop roof, Bogota's lights a tapestry below. Sadie slipped inside, her latest drawing, a fire truck with her, Jonas, and Lucia safe under her pillow. Jonas spoke of his path, the fire of revenge, the price they all paid. Lucia listened, her hand in his, sharing her hope to find her sister, not to erase pain, but to live beyond it. They planned a family trip to trace her roots, Sadie included, a future rooted in love, not ashes. The betrayals cost Meredith's lost years, Jonas's eroded trust, Sadie's quiet ache remained, but Jonas had learned the truth. Betrayal scars, revenge deepens the wound, but letting go builds meaning. Life's hardest lessons, he realized, taught that forgiveness wasn't for others but for oneself, to live fully for those who matter. This journey has ended, raw and profound. The conclusion might resonate or shock listeners. They are invited to share their thoughts below. Those moved should like and subscribe for more tales of loss and renewal. Gratitude goes to all who joined, with a promise of new stories soon.